You know, when we talk about military drones, our minds usually jump to the most advanced, the fastest, the absolute top-of-the-line models. But what if the drone that really changed everything wasn't the best one, but the one that was simply there? Today, we're going to dig into the drone that arguably blew the market wide open for China and its customers all over the world.
So here it is. This is the CH-4 Rainbow. Now, it's not the newest kid on the block, not by a long shot, but you have to think of it as the foundational workhorse. For a lot of countries, this was their ticket into the armed drone club, and in doing so, it totally redefined the market and put China on the map as a major drone power.
So, what was the secret sauce here? How did the CH-4 make such a huge splash? Well, it wasn't about being the absolute best of the best. It was about being good enough and, maybe more importantly, it was available. It perfectly filled this massive void for countries that couldn't buy Western drones, either because they were too expensive or because of really strict export rules.
Now, if you're looking at this slide and thinking that the CH-4 looks kind of familiar, you're not wrong. It's often compared directly to the famous US MQ-1 Predator. And that's on purpose. It was designed to do the exact same job, be a reliable eye in the sky and an attack platform, but for a much bigger audience around the globe. That comparison really gives us the perfect yardstick for what it can do.
And for the price, its capabilities are seriously impressive. We're talking about what they call a medium-altitude, long-endurance drone. It can just hang out in the sky for over 30 hours at a time, way up at 25,000 feet. That gives its operators this persistent view for surveillance or, a platform to launch precision strikes with things like the AR-1 missile.
But the story definitely doesn't stop with the CH-4. You really have to think of it as the dependable workhorse that paved the way for China's much more powerful racehorses.
This table just lays out that evolution perfectly. You've got the CH-4 up top. That's our baseline. Then you see the Wingloon 2, which is a big step up, kind of like the US MQ-9 Reaper. But then, look at that jump to the Wingloon 3. We're talking 40 hours of flight time and a crazy 10,000-kilometer strategic range. That's not just a little upgrade, that's a whole new level of capability. And it all started on the foundation that the CH-4 built. And it's not just about how long they can fly. The weapons got a huge upgrade too. The CH-4 is effective with missiles like the AR-1, for sure, but its successors, they've set records. The Wingloon 2, for example, can hit 5 different targets with 5 different kinds of missiles all in one mission. That shows you just how much more versatile they've become in combat.
Okay, so we've got all this impressive technology. How on earth did these drones get so popular all over the world? This is where the story shifts from engineering to straight-up geopolitics and business strategy. It wasn't just about building a drone. It was about how they decided to sell it.
And this quote right here, it just nails it. See, unlike a lot of Western countries that have really tight controls on selling armed drone tech, China took a much more open approach. This one policy, this no-questions-asked strategy, basically unlocked a massive global market that was just waiting for a supplier.
And this isn't just about simple one-off sales either. China's strategy is much smarter than that. It's about building these deep industrial partnerships. The deal with Saudi Arabia to co-produce the CH-4 system, that's the perfect example of how they can turn a customer into a real long-term partner. This deal is just a brilliant strategic win-win. For Saudi Arabia, it's not just about getting some drones. It's about building up their own defense industry. By making the CH-4 right there at home, they get the tech they want, and they move closer to their huge Vision 2030 goal of localizing military spending. It's an incredibly powerful way to build a real strategic relationship. All right, let's circle back to the hardware itself. A huge reason the CH-4 has been so successful is that it's not some delicate piece of equipment you have to baby. It is engineered from the ground up to work in the tough, messy, real-world places where it's actually needed. To put it simply, these drones are tough. A lot of the countries using them are in the Middle East and Africa, and the design totally reflects that. They are built to handle punishing heat and choking dust.
And this slide really shows you what we mean by environmental hardening. We're talking about things like multi-stage dust protection to keep the engine from getting wrecked in a sandstorm, and really advanced cooling systems so it can operate in brutal 50 degrees Celsius, that's 122 degrees Fahrenheit, heat. That kind of reliability is a massive selling point.
But there's one last piece to this whole puzzle, and honestly, it might be the most strategic part of all. We're talking about navigational independence. This gives China, and any country that buys its drones, a huge advantage. Meet the Beidou satellite system. Basically, it's China's own version of GPS. By using their own private network,
These drones can't have their GPS signal jammed or cut off by the US. This gives them what's been called a true global combat capability that is totally self-reliant. And that is an absolutely critical feature for any country that wants to conduct its own military operations.
So when you put it all together, the CH-4 wasn't just another drone, it was a total market opener. It blended accessible tech, a really smart export strategy, and tough, battle-ready engineering. So that brings us to the big question, right? The CH-4 was the workhorse, now we have the Wing Loan 3 racehorse. As this family of drones just gets better and better, who's going to be the next customer? And what's it going to mean for all of us when this kind of power ends up in new hands?